Hi, and welcome to A Sense of Wellness podcast, inspiring and empowering a healthier you. I'm your host, Susan Greeley, and I'll be diving deeper into the 4 pillars of wellness: sleep, exercise, nutrition, and stress management. In today's episode, I'm expanding on my past episodes about sleep, and I'm speaking with another sleep expert to help provide yet more insight and tools into how to conquer insomnia or other sleep issues and become a natural sleeper. My guest today, Julie Wright, is an entrepreneur, speaker, and author. She is a sleep educator and ambassador who is on a mission to help people live better lives by improving their sleep. Julie is the author of the book, The Natural Sleeper, which was recently published in the U.S. on March 9th of 2021. And she is the founder and chief sleep orchestrator of the company Wesleep, where she runs and facilitates webinars, workshops, lectures, discussion panels, one-to-one consultations, and therapeutic sessions on the topic of sleep deprivation and insomnia. With all that, I'm very excited to have Julie with me today. So welcome, Julie.
Hello, welcome to me. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here with you, Susan. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, it's my pleasure. And I want to tell our listeners that I know right now you are, so I'm on the East Coast of the United States and you are in Los Angeles. However, you're from London. So my very first sort of funny question for you, Julie, is how do you conquer jet lag yourself?
I know. I'll add another layer to that, which is I'm originally from France, which is that funny accent, which is a mixture of French and American.
I wanted to ask that. I love that.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I need to practice what I preach. I try to do that in general. With jet lag, there are ways to facilitate it, but the reality is that when you change time zones, it is a difficult thing that you're asking your body and your brain to do, which is adjust as fast as the way you moved, from one area to another area of the world. It's always easiest to adjust heading west. So going from London to Los Angeles is easier than the other way around, because it's easier to go to bed later than it is to wake up earlier in the morning. And so there are a lot of different tips, and I talk about them in the book, but the best ally for jet lag is light. It's natural daylight in particular, and it's exposing yourself to daylight in the morning and adjusting right away to the new time zone that you are in. So getting up at the normal time as everybody else in the new time zone, and go outside, go outdoors. Exercise would be even better if you could exercise outdoor, because then you're stimulating your brain and your body and you're giving it the cues that the start of the day is now. And it takes about 1 day per hour of time difference.
Okay.
So it's just something to know. So for example, between London and LA is eight hours. So in theory, it should take about 8 days. And the other thing is also to adjust your meal times and eat at normal times in the new time zone that you are.
Oh, I agree. That's really important. I talk to people about that a lot. And yeah, all of those normal rhythms. So that's very helpful. The hour a day. I did not know that. And I'm glad you're adjusted. I guess it helps going to sunny Los Angeles.
Yes. It's the regularity, because basically, our body clock helps us with our wake and sleep processes. And what the body clock likes is regularity. It's the same time waking up and the same time going to bed. And when you travel, you change that. So this is really important to maintain a sort of routine. Some people use melatonin as well. And, in the US, melatonin is available over the counter, but in Europe, it's not. You need a prescription for that, for the American listeners and others around the world. And melatonin can help with jet lag and just sort of take it on a short period. It's not necessarily a good long-term strategy to solve any sleep issues. I just wanted to add that.
Right. Thank you for saying that. It's true. Okay. So I like that. And here we are today. So for our listeners and even for myself, I would love to hear more about your personal story and how you developed your company, Wesleep. So give us a little bit of your background, Julie, more, and what inspired you to go down this path of becoming a sleep educator?
Yes, a long and painful and now happy
I had a feeling.
path. Well, yes. I mean, my background, years and years, was working in the entertainment business, so music, film, and TV as an executive. And like many of us today, I did develop sleep issues, which became chronic insomnia. And honestly, my first reflex was to go to the doctors, and then I was prescribed sleeping pills, and I had a terrible experience with them, and totally corresponds to the side effects that you can endure if you take sleep aids. At the minimum, it's feeling too groggy to even function properly during the day, but also, developing almost like an addiction, like you need them to sleep, which is really an issue, and confusion and memory loss. And really, that just didn't work for me. And I knew that this could not be a long-term approach. It took a while before I decided to try other things, other non-medicated options, which is the basis for my book, actually, which is about all the non-medicated approaches, natural, complementary, alternative, quite practical tips as well, And so I've explored and researched, and I had the support of wonderful therapists and alternative doctors as well, and I've worked also with researchers in the field of sleep and academics, who teach it as well. So a lot of learning that I've gathered over time. And what is interesting is that I decided to try as much as possible. So in terms of what I talk in my book, The Natural Sleeper, I think I've tried probably about 80% of what I talk about, because I wanted to know what it felt like. I wanted to know, does it work? And then I realized that actually a lot of it is really helpful, but we're all different. And that, what might work for one person may not work for another. And in fact, even what could work one night for me may not work a different night. So I understood, and now, and this got confirmed actually, just even speaking to other sleep experts and doctors, that what's important is to figure out what's the right solutions for you, and then have a toolkit, have a range of options that you can tap into. And once you've self-monitored and you understand why you're not sleeping on that night, is then apply all the things that could be helpful for you, So it's a very personalized approach, and sleep is so complex that it takes a long time to narrow it down, and it takes experimentation, which is what I've done,
Yes, that's such a key point. It is personalized, and it takes time to develop that personal toolkit, right? You and I were just speaking. I said, translate that into my world of nutrition. It's the exact same approach, very personalized with individual diets, and it can change over time. So what I like to tell people is to be patient, and it's true. You kind of have to, be open to experimenting on yourself. And that said, because you're my third expert I've brought in regarding sleep, because it is so complex and it is so individual. And I love what your book focuses on, which are these other factors and activities in our lives that really impact it. So I want to spend a significant amount of time talking about them. There's a lot out there that I didn't even know about until I started looking into it more. So if you can you shed some light on maybe some of these helpful things that, well, I hope they can help or maybe even hurt the process, such as pillows, mattresses, air filters. How do you choose blankets, diffuser, sound machines, you name it? I'm sure that there's a lot.
That's like a whole conversation.
Yes!
It's hours and hours.
It's
of
hours and
podcasts.
hours. So right. Maybe we pare it down. And if you can just both give us your, just more insight into some of is there the good, the bad, and the ugly, the short list?
Sure. Yeah. Nothing like a short list. And also, you talked about being a sleep expert. I call myself a sleep ambassador because
I like that. Yeah.
I think that, I want to preach sleep and all things related to it. I think we are our own experts. And this is what I found out in my own journey, because nobody will know yourself. Nobody will know you as best as you know yourself, is what I'm trying to say.
It's very empowering.
Yes, and sleep is quite practical. So I'll go into this, but it's also psychological. It could be due to, poor sleep could be due to environmental factors. It could be medical factors. It could be physiological factors. And okay, you will at some point, if it gets, really difficult to solve, perhaps need the help of an expert or a medical doctor. And you should definitely tap into that. But you can definitely start with simple things. And the simple things are definitely the environmental choices you make for yourself. So the bedroom in which you sleep, and also your lifestyle choices, what you decide to do during your day, including nutrition, including exercise, including stimulation levels. And I'll explain a bit more of what I mean by all of that. But what I'm trying to say is that we have more control over our sleep than we believe. A lot of times we feel so frustrated when we can't sleep at night. We feel we have no control, that, we're trying and trying, and that's as hard as we try, it's still not happening. And in fact, by understanding the way your brain and your body works and understanding the choices you make during your day, not at night, but during the days, then you start understanding what could impact your sleep, because your sleep is really the result of a multitude and a mix of things. This is why I call myself an orchestrator, because it feels like that. It feels like there's so many components and variables that you need to orchestrate for yourself the right mix for a good night's sleep. So it's a very complex topic. In the book, I try to simplify it as much as possible and be very practical about it in terms of the solutions. So where to start? Because I'm trying to play back all the questions you asked me before. It sounded like you started with the bedroom. I think you're talking about
even in the sense of this. Exactly, I was going to say, because I feel that question a lot regarding blankets and pillows in particular.
Sure. Yeah, and actually blankets and pillows are quite popular right now, because you'll see through social media a lot of advertising around ergonomic pillows or memory foam mattresses, a weighted blanket. That's like sort of the new thing as well, which are weighted products that you can replace your blankets with, which weigh on you. And I explain why that works. So if we start with the bed, for sure. So you have to really create a very safe and comfortable bed. You should change your mattress every 7 years. We sweat in our bed about half a liter per night, for those who don't know. And also, after a while, your bed doesn't support your back and your spine, and you can develop neck or back pain. So honestly, you can read pages and pages about mattresses and pillows. You just have to find something that is comfortable for you, that keeps your spine aligned, and that does not make you feel too hot at night or sweat. So some people don't sleep very well on memory foam, a specific type of memory foam, which I think is called polyurethane, which generates a lot of heat, and latex foam is better. But actually, the old school spring box springs mattresses are fine too. It's really a matter of just making sure you get the right alignment and the right temperature. And talking about temperature, under the sheets should be no more than 84 Fahrenheit degrees. And I'm not asking you to put a thermometer inside your bed, but basically keep it warm, but not too warm. If you feel too warm, you need to uncover yourself. And I always recommend layers of blankets, so that you can have a sheet and perhaps, a comforter or a duvet, as we call it in the UK, and then another blanket on top. And then you can just adjust depending, on how hot you feel. The actual ambient temperature in the room should be no more than 67 degrees. So between 60 to 67. So not too hot, not too cold. What you need to do is allow for your body's temperature to drop a couple of degrees. So it's 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit. Because dropping the temperature is one of the signals and the cues for the brain to know that it is nighttime and it's time to start, slowing down and preparing for sleep and fall asleep. If you feel too hot, you'll struggle staying asleep. And menopausal women have it really bad, because when you get, hot flushes, you will struggle to sleep just because your body temperature is just, too high. So something to be aware of. And then
it's a real struggle. It's a huge struggle for a lot of
yes.
For a lot of people, that temperature. So not to interrupt, because these are fabulous. Everything you just said was so helpful. The ambient temperature, I wrote it down, between 60 to 67 degrees.
Correct.
See if I paid attention.
Yes.
Letting the body temperature does need to decrease 2 to 3 degrees to give it that cue that it's time to sleep. I think 7 years goes by faster than what people realize as far as changing out mattresses. That's extreme.
But look at it, 7 years, I think I'd calculated, is something like the equivalent of, I think, between 20 and 21,000 hours of sleep.
Wow.
So it's it's time. I mean, you might see if your mattress starts to have like sort of deep pockets, and that won't flatten back out, and
springing back.
Springing back. Exactly. That's what I was looking for. then it's definitely time to change. And also, one thing that, I found out even as I was buying my mattresses, is that you need to pay attention to also your curves and your weight, because that will also determine the type of mattress that you get. So the curvier you are, or if you're, a bit heavier versus being really skinny, might impact the type of mattress you get. Anyway, so that was it on
Fascinating.
yes.
Yeah, no, thank you. It is overwhelming. And I think,
Yes.
right, when you just have like this huge selection, where do you start? And
Well,
these are
you can
great
start with
pointers.
in the book. This is why I try to really make it
Yeah.
simple. So it's sort of
Yeah.
bullet points, there's sections, it's simplified, and it
Mhm.
gives you quick pointers. And if you want to deep dive, you can do that. I just wanted to go back on weighted blankets because that is a
Yes.
popular item right
Question.
now. The theory
Sure is.
behind it is that it's a form of acupressure, and the fact that it puts pressure on different parts of your body helps release serotonin, which is a happy hormone, very calming. Helps release also dopamine, which is very much the reward and feel good hormone as well. And oxytocin, which is the love and, sort of the love hormone, really.
Right.
And apparently that's what it does. And that's why people would sleep better. I actually get a lot of clients or workshop participants who tell me that this works really well for them. And also it seems to help with body temperature as well. But it doesn't work for everyone. So just something to be aware of.
And to try. And are there
Yes.
any workarounds? Like, do you have to go and invest in a weighted blanket, or can you say, use some multiple heavy pillows to get the same effect?
No, I don't think well, I mean, you can
I
try and
wonder.
see if that
Right.
works as a starting point. But I think these blankets are, yeah, they're made very specifically in
Developed.
terms of, yeah, and
Okay.
developed. It's almost like a technology, if you
Yeah.
will, a textile technology. So, yes, so it's just an idea, but I'm not saying rush and get one. I'm just saying it works for some people. You
And
might want to
again, just
experiment.
explaining the why behind it,
Hmm.
because these were developed with these very specific reasons or for that purpose. So I think that's very, very helpful. Okay, continuing along those lines, is tracking your sleep a good idea? Kind of switching more to technology versus these physical elements. So,
Sure.
there's tools and apps, and do you recommend any? And was there any value in any sort of
Yes.
technology related to sleep?
Yes, I'm glad you talk about technology in sleep. And sleep tech is a huge boomingness, to be honest, especially in the US. There are a lot of devices that help track sleep, whether they're wristbands, smartwatches, even your phone can track sleep. I'll explain kind of how it works very briefly. You've got also some what's called non-contact sleep tracking devices. And what it means is that it's not on you, on your body, but it can still track your sleep. I'll explain again. and
I
and
didn't
also
know that.
apps. Yes,
Didn't
yes. I
know
mean,
that.
yeah, again, I keep referring back to the book, but I had to do it for myself and listing all this stuff. Like it is overwhelming. There is a lot out there. The thing about sleep tracking, I'll say two things. Well, first of all, about sleep tech, technology can be your worst enemy or your best ally. It's all about how you use it. I am not anti-technology. On the contrary, in fact, a lot of my background is that it's all about how you use that technology. Engaging with too much technology can create so much stimulation that your brain waves will struggle to slow down because there'd be too much stimulation, whether it be visual or auditory. It will force you to stay alert, if in other
Right,
words, so
right.
you want
It's
to
too
make sure that,
stimulating.
yes, that you don't engage into activities with technology that are too stimulating or that are too bright in terms of the light emission that might be into your eyes, because one of the cues to fall asleep is darkness. And we didn't talk about that earlier, but well, we did talk
We
about
talked
it in the
about light.
context of
Yes.
light and jet lag, but we sleep, along the darkness and lightness and brightness, if you will, cycles that take place every day. So
Sure.
as humans, we're diurnal. So we're active by day and we sleep by night. And the best way for our brains and our bodies to be aware of it is by the light level and also the color of the light. So when you start, it's true that if you stay in front of a screen too bright, too long, it might delay and take you longer to fall asleep. Although, there's a debate as to how much that is the case and, how long it delays sleep or if it can disrupt sleep. But it's true that, even the smallest source of light can impact your sleep. So, but I think that the brightness, but also the stimulation is what could be the enemy for sleep when it comes to sleep technology. Now, you
Okay.
can use technology in very helpful ways to help calm yourself down or engage in sort of meditative or mindfulness practices. Sound apps also that emit certain sounds that are helpful for sleep. And I talk in my book about white noise and pink noise, binaural beats. There's a range of noises, neuro and psychoacoustics, as I like to call them, that help both psychologically to calm you down, but also slow down your brain waves, literally, because your brain can sync with these sounds and slow down. And the deeper and slower your brain waves, the deeper you fall asleep. So that's why it's interesting to use sound apps for that. Some people are using bedtime stories as well, or podcasts, or even just as long as it's sort of
Music.
even and
Right.
not too stimulating is really what it is about. So, and one more thing that I want to go back to when it comes to tracking is that the data that is available is good and it's getting better and better, but you should not obsess over it. Don't think that because it says here that you only had 20 minutes of deep sleep, that's all you got. Because really, the only way to properly measure sleep and measure the different stages of sleep, so light sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep, which is the dream stage, really is in a sleep clinic, in a lab with, sensors actually connected from your brain all the way down to your legs to properly measure it. So the data that you see from your Fitbits and, your other devices, it's helpful, but it shouldn't be something that you really make all your decisions on. And so certainly that you should not get frustrated over, So I say you can use these wristbands or your phones or whatever devices and apps that are available, but do it without, too many expectations from it, and just use them as a guideline, but not as a specific measurement of
Sure.
how well you sleep. The only way you really know if you've slept well is really, it's subjective. How do you
Yes. How
feel?
do you feel?
Yes. How do you feel? How do you feel during the day? And
Mhm.
do you have to nap every day? Absolutely. And do you feel like you could just drop and sleep? And that's probably a big sign of sleep deprivation. Do you fall asleep in less than a few minutes? It should take between 5 and 15 minutes to fall asleep. Any less, if you really drop out, like a light, like some people say, that is probably a sign of sleep deprivation. So really it is quite subjective, and using these tracking devices is just really only to help, understand a little bit more about your sleep, but, don't get hung up on it.
That's great. Exactly. And maybe, just a little insight into yourself and then make some decisions that support yourself, but not stress about it. That's
Exactly.
good. And
Exactly.
I find it fascinating, and people can dive into that more in your book, I hope. And I think I will too, just as long as like the sound waves, the megahertz, like things within our brains and how the brain waves actually change. So that's my segue into my next question, which is related to our brains. We've talked about the physicality and the tech, and now I want to know specifically, Julie, about cognitive behavioral training and sleep. So do you conduct programs, or do you incorporate that into how you work with somebody, and do you
Mhm.
recommend it? So if you could speak to the CBT.
Yes, yes, yes. I'll speak to the CBT, and more specifically the difference between CBT and what's called CBTI, which is cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, which was developed specifically for chronic insomniacs. And it's different from your traditional cognitive behavioral therapy, even though there are a lot of the similar principle. But it is very much based on some psychological techniques and approaches, but also a sleep restriction approach where you actually manage your sleep. I should say restriction or scheduling, really. You schedule your sleep and you reduce it gradually a little bit every day to then develop what's called sleep pressure. And it's the idea that when we fall asleep, it's a combination of things. It's the body clock that tells you when you should sleep, but it's also your sleep pressure, which tells you how sleepy you feel. And the problem with the chronic insomniacs is that sleepiness, that sleepy feeling that makes you fall asleep so easily is not something that we all develop at the right time of the day and night, and it's creating disruptions. So with cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, so CBTI, you basically learn to remanage your sleep so that you can recreate that sleep pressure combined with, the body clock at regular times. So that's part of it. And part of it is also psychological approaches, like preparing the mind for sleep. And this is part of what could be a bedtime routine. A lot of chronic insomniacs develop anxiety or depression, or in reverse might be anxious people who struggle to sleep as a result, and then it starts disrupting their sleep. And so there are approaches as part of CBTI that helps you. So it could be anything from really, starting your wind down, drawing a line under the day, doing all the chores so that you can really signal to your brain subconsciously almost, that it's that soon you will be going to bed. It could be also managing anxieties, and then you'll be familiar with this, being familiar with CBT, and understanding things that you have control over and things that you don't have control over. Because the problem with anxiety or worries is that while we sleep, our brain is still processing it, and if we haven't made the work before we go to bed, if we haven't managed our mind and help work towards solutions to these worries and anxieties, they'll stick with us through the night and create stress and alertness, which will prevent us from sleeping soundly and staying asleep. So there are different, and I won't go into all of them. I do mention them in my book if anyone's interested. And obviously, if you work with a CBTI therapist, you do this, it's more a deep dive into it. But it would be really things from distancing yourself from the situation, understanding what you have control over and what you don't have control over, making decisions over particular situations, and deciding whether it's something you need to do right now in the middle of the night or if it can wait until tomorrow. Journaling, gratitude practicing, worry time, 10 to 15 minutes, and really focusing your mind on worrying while you're awake rather than letting this happen while you are asleep, because your brain will do it, So there is a bit of mind management to do, and combined also with body relaxation. So that's also part of CBTI. There are techniques, whether it's body scans, which people who do yoga will be really familiar with. So scanning your body from head to toe, and also progressive muscular relaxation, which is a very practical technique, which consists in contracting and releasing muscles, body part by body part, and combining this with breathworks. So breathworks is also another technique, and which is becoming more and more popular, which is amazing.
Sure is.
For relaxation, mind clarity, but also for sleep. And for sleep, there are specific techniques that are, breathing techniques that are sleep inducing, if you will. So yes, a lot that we can do before bed instead of engaging in a Netflix series or a video game or social media, for example. Exactly. That would be quite helpful for sleep.
Right, for more outside stimuli, and instead of focusing and taking the time. So I say this, it's like we're talking all about the opposite of the quick fix, essentially. And right, it's kind of like the self-discovery. One thing I would like maybe just your thought on or back me up on is kind of at the beginning you were talking about this, and it's the goal of mine with my podcast in general is empowering people. And so putting the power back in their hands. So just believing that they can actually sleep on their own, become that natural. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, right? That they have the power to sleep on their own. So mindset. Right?
Yes, a mindset. The mindset for sleep. That could be a book in itself, right? Yes, 100%. And I'm more than back you up. Like, I'm a fan, I'm a supporter. Yes, we have more control over our sleep than we believe. We think that sleep controls us, but ultimately we can control sleep with the right decisions, the right habits, and the right understanding of our brain and bodies. And so, but it's also about experimentation, one of the techniques that works very quickly is breath work. So if you apply the breathing techniques for sleep, you'll be so surprised in how quickly it works. There's a reason why it works. And in my book, I really always try to explain why it works, because for me, the best way to practice something is understanding why it works and how it works. And then it's a little easier to integrate this into your routine, because it doesn't have to be taxing or difficult or, a long change that you need to do in your life. It could be quite simple, quick changes. You just have to choose the ones that you will commit to. It is about commitment, So control for me starts with commitment and committing to a few things. It might be one thing, it might be two, three, four, five, or it might be a particular therapy that intrigues you. I really believe also in following your intuition and what intrigues you, what feels better. In the book, I have a map that I've a couple of maps to try and help people decide what might work for them. So whether someone is a little bit more pragmatic or a little bit more spiritual, or someone would like the help, professional help, or would prefer to be self-guided and work on their own. We're all a little bit different. There are also people who want immediate results versus people who are okay to stick with a regime, and maybe the results will come in the medium to long term. So we're all a little bit different, and it's about finding the right solution for us, for when it comes to that. So the control is something that I really firmly believe we do have, but it is about commitment and about understanding why sleep is so important. And there are books out there that explain it even more than I do. I talk a little bit about it in a few pages in my book, but why sleep is so essential for your health, mental, physical, your happiness, your psychological state, and even your mood. It could also save a relationship.
Everything,
Yes, you
everything.
could
That's
look
why,
better.
that's why,
Yes, you will
right.
eat better. You will
Yes. You
not
exercise,
struggle.
you eat better.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. So
Mhm.
sleep now, as it's recognized as the foundation for all the other areas of well-being, because if you don't sleep enough, you're going to struggle doing everything else. So I think, if the issue about control, which is what you just mentioned now, I think you can start with simple changes, simple techniques. So breath work is one, progressive muscular relaxation is really one, also a simple one. Listening to sounds that are relaxing and helping you could be a simple one. Doing 5-minute meditation as opposed to an hour is a simple change that you could start with.
Exactly. That alone, instead of it being
Mhm.
overwhelming, as it,
Mhm.
back to commitment's important. However, it doesn't have to be this huge time commitment. 5 minutes can make a big difference.
Exactly. Or for example, caffeine intake also,
Yeah,
there's
sure.
so much to talk about when it
So
comes
I
to sleep,
know
but
it really
when it
is.
comes to
Yeah,
nutrition and also the things that you choose to drink, so stimulants in particular like coffee and alcohol,
sure.
reducing your caffeine intake, of course, 1 to 2 cups a day would be ideal if you struggle with sleep. If you don't struggle with sleep,
Yeah.
then fine. But if you do, then you might do that. But also shift it earlier in the day. Stop drinking coffee at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, no later. And a lot of people
Sure.
would know that. Same
Yeah.
thing with alcohol. It takes 5 to 6 hours to metabolize a glass of wine or a pint of beer. So really, you shouldn't drink later than maybe 5 p.m. in the afternoon, and then have a bit of water behind, to flush it out. So just some simple things some simple tweaks that you can do for starting as a starting point, and commitment.
Right. Fabulous. Thank you. And speaking of starting points,
Mm-hmm.
this is a biggie for a lot of my clients and I'm sure many listeners out there who do take, I call them sleep aids, we'll say medication to sleep. And they really are in a place, I hear this very frequently, Julie, that they want to get off of them. As you said, you
Yes.
went that path yourself. So as far as a starting point, what is your advice for people who say, I'm ready to get off the
Mm-hmm.
medication? Can you tell me what are the first steps? How do I start?
Yes. I mean, it also depends how long, right? If is it long
Yeah.
term, or in general, doctors don't prescribe sleeping pills in theory for more than, a couple of months. I'm sorry, a couple of weeks,
Okay.
perhaps a month. But, some people are on them for a longer period. And sometimes it's for other conditions like perhaps anxiety or depression, and then sleep is
Yeah.
alongside it. I mean, the first advice is really to consult with your doctor and say, I want to stop sleeping pills, because you will need the support and you will need to gradually decrease
Decrease. Okay.
your prescription medication. It would be a terrible idea to stop completely immediately, because you will really experience very strong side effects, and it will be really too difficult. So the idea is to consult with your doctor, reduce it gradually, sorry, and then start replacing it with other solutions and integrating this into your routine. CBTI that we talked about is one that seems to be quite supportive as a starting point, because it involves sleep restriction. And when you do your sleep restriction, it impacts your sleep hormones in particular. And I talked about the sleep pressure. So it helps with that. It helps you feel so sleepy that it gets easier to sleep in time. But it does take time. It's not something that works overnight. You won't really see the changes. You might see some immediate changes, but the real changes come in 2, 4, 6 weeks. So you really have to stick with the CBTI program. And then I encourage people to experiment with alternative therapies. So for me, traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine, which is the traditional Indian medicinal system, was really great. It's a combination of plants, which are also, by the way, medicine. Plants can be medicine as well, but much more gentle with minimal side effects for, really few people, if at all. And also combined with other approaches, Ayurveda, for example, has and traditional Chinese medicine have a spiritual component to it that include meditations, for example. And that can help. All of this really helps psychologically, but it helps your physiology. It actually helps, whether it's even acupuncture or acupressure, which is another one that I'm a big fan of. And the idea that there are locations in your body, on your head, on your hands, on your feet, and different parts of your body that will connect with certain organs and support your sleep. And I talk about it in the book again, which are the particular points. Really easy to do at home, or you can go and see a specialist. You can also work with an aromatherapist or a herbalist, so both of them would help you with the types of medicinal herbs that could be useful. So the idea is to start shifting away from sleeping pills, doing so gradually, replacing them with, helpful therapies or practices, looking at all of the factors there are more factors, but even those that I've talked about, environmental, your lifestyle choices, what you eat, what you drink, and do this as a program, which is why some people can do it on their own, but some people need the help, of a sleep therapist to accompany them in that, because it could be quite overwhelming, but you can start with small changes and see how it impacts you.
Right. That's a nice roadmap. Thank you. And I love that. I'm a big fan of all of those, TCM and Ayurveda, and I incorporate a lot of those into my own practice. And
Amazing.
yeah, and this is hearing about weighted blankets, and if you understand the why behind it, it's based in that acupressure, right? So
It
it's
is.
become mainstream, but without people really knowing. So
Yes.
getting there. I love that. So how about for you yourself? Of course, I have to ask this question since you say you practice what you preach. I do too,
Yes.
or at least, attempt to most days. What does your bedtime routine look like?
It's on and off, if I'm really honest, because I practice what I preach, but I'm also human. And I also have days that are so long where I have so much going on and I juggle different time zones,
Yeah.
which make it difficult to practice regularity. The one thing I do is wake up at the same time every day, including weekends, which is one of the most important advice for regulating your body clock. So your circadian rhythm. And that's tough, right? Because sometimes you
It
may not have
is.
slept sufficiently, so you want to maybe sleep in or perhaps nap. I also work very hard on not napping. And that's a big change from when I used to be a chronic insomniac, where I used to take advantage of a nap. There's a bit of a debate. Some people are pro nap, some people are against them. But the reality is, if you're real chronic insomniac, you might really consider your napping strategy and really do it only if you can't function at all, and no later than perhaps 4 or 5 p.m. I'd say, and no later than 30 minutes. So not napping for an hour or too late in the afternoon or in the evening. A lot of people nap on the sofa at like 7 or 8 p.m. When they come back
That was
exhausted
my
from
mother.
work.
Yeah.
Yes, my mother too. So that's not a good idea. So I definitely do that. The bedtime is also more difficult because my chronotype is night owl to extreme night owl. So that's something also that we haven't talked about, but
No, we have not.
genetically we're all designed and wired to sleep at different times. So some people are larks, so early morning people, and some people are extreme night owls, which are people like me, where I start waking up and feeling active from about 4 p.m. Apparently it would be linked to ancient ancestral even roles that we had in the tribes, where some would be awake at night to protect the tribe and others would be hunting and gathering early in the morning. So that's the theory behind it. So bottom line is, in terms of the routine, definitely what I look at is the time that I stop drinking liquids. So an hour and a half before bedtime, stop water or any liquids, because otherwise you might wake up in the middle of the night to go to the toilet. How silly. And then you can't fall back asleep. I watch definitely anything that's a stimulant, whether it's alcohol or caffeine. I watch body temperature. So even if it feels cool, I won't cover myself too much. I will let that happen because that temperature drop will make me automatically feel sleepier. So I definitely do that. I definitely do a lot of mind management. So addressing worries, planning for the next day, to-dos for the next day, or just having a plan so that I'm not trying to reinvent the world as I'm trying to sleep. If I feel like I could get into an argument with a sibling or a partner or a friend, I literally do not have it in the evening. That's another thing, avoiding any upsetting situation before bedtime. And they say never go to bed angry, and that's very true. It is true because it will stick with you. What else? Lights. We talked about lights. So dimming the lights. I literally turn down all the lights and also use blue light filters on my screens so that the light levels can start going down for about a couple of hours before bedtime. So that's all, sort of all part of my bedtime routine. If I have time, I might take a hot bath or hot shower. That's also helpful for body temperature. And and if I have even more time, then I'll definitely include some breath work or meditation or mindfulness practice. Acupressure, self acupressure is something that I do also quite frequently if I'm particularly stressed or anxious. So it's massaging specific points on the hands and feet and head. Super helpful. It's unbelievable how well it works for me. So
And
So
learning to do that for yourself, even like a
yes,
gentle head massage, right? On your
yes,
hands and
yes,
feet. It's fabulous.
yes.
All of that, Julie. It's incredible how much information you have. I want to keep tapping into it. And I could talk to you all day. These are, no, you've really given us some just wonderful information here. So that said, is there anything for our listeners that is there any one, final message or takeaway you want to give? I know there's a lot. That's a lot. And if not, it's
This
okay.
is
You
a
can say
lot.
just
This
read
is
your
a lot.
book because
No,
it's all in there.
yes, okay. So I'll get to that.
Yeah.
But the one thing I want to say is that we have more control than we believe. And I said that earlier in the
Yeah.
conversation.
But
I'll
let's
say it again.
reiterate it. It's true.
Yes,
I
it
agree.
does require some commitment and understanding your body and your brain and why things work. Start with the whys, like many things in life. And understand why it's so important to prioritize your sleep and not sacrifice it. We've been in a habit of sacrificing our sleep for work, for entertainment, for anything else, for competition, achievements and whatnot. And I think it's time to nurture your sleep. It's time to nurture your sleep. That's what I'd love to leave people with. Yes. And you're right. There is so much information. Like I said, I have digested it in my book, The Natural Sleeper. It's structured so that you can jump around. So you don't have to read it from A to Z. You can jump around to see what interests you. There's a map and there's a chapters section that tells you what the sections are, and you can just sort of go around. And so it's so that you don't feel overwhelmed and you can start exploring the different options that might work for you. So yes, the book is called The Natural Sleeper. And then if someone wants to get information about it, they can go to thenaturalsleeper.com. And then it shows you also, where to purchase it. And, I have also in terms of the business, it's Wesleep and it's wesleep.co.uk. And so, feel free to reach out if you're interested in any webinars or, or even advice, or even you can email me with a question. I'm happy to answer single questions, perhaps not full
Right.
consultations, but it is truly my
Love that.
mission to try and help people sleep better. So, I'm happy to help. So, yes, wesleep.co.uk and thenaturalsleeper.com is where you can find out more information.
Thank you, because that's why I am talking to you. It's so important. And even what I do in my background, is as a nutritionist, registered dietitian, it is very rare that I do a consultation where I don't ask about sleep because it's that important. I think that top down, and it does impact everything. And that's something that I really stress with people, that it is a power, a superpower, and not a weakness. Like there's this I don't know where it came from, but your mom, oh, this guilt, you can't nap, or like sleeping makes you like you're weak. Like I'm always, and that's, we have to undo that, because for our immune systems, for everything, they said moods, relationship, how you eat, how you function. So I'm joining you on your mission, and I love having you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I have one final question for you, Julie, because I ask this of all guests and I love this question. What is one thing that you're grateful for today
Today,
or at this moment?
right in this moment. To be honest, I'm really grateful for the opportunities that people like you give me, which is to continue spreading the message about sleep. I've become so passionate about it and so passionate about not just helping myself, but helping others with it, that whenever I have that opportunity and whenever I have that email of someone who tells me I've been sleeping 4.5 hours a night for the past 10 years, and last night I slept 7.5 hours, when I heard, and, we spoke, and, or I went to your webinar and whatnot. When I get an email like that, and when I get the opportunity to share what I know, and I see that, there is an impact on people's lives, is really what makes me feel better and what I feel really grateful for. So what you've done today is giving me that opportunity and that platform. So I'm really grateful for that. I
Thank
mean this. I'm not just saying
Yes,
this.
no, your passion comes through, and I'm grateful for that too. I love it. It's great energy. It's my goal to share people's passion such as yours. I'm right there with you. And I also sincerely mean that. It comes through. And the best feeling in the world is when you know you've helped somebody and improved their lives. So thank you. Thank you again for being with me today, Julie. And because there's so much there, I would definitely love to speak with you again anytime. And good luck in the States promoting your book and your work, and keep going and get some good sleep along the way as well.
Yes. I must not forget that.
Do
Thank you
not
so
forget
much.
that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Susan. It's been
Thanks.
great. Thank you very much.
Thank you for taking the time to join me and listen to this episode. Listeners can find more information and also subscribe to the Sense of Wellness podcast at www.ccphp.net/SENS/podcast. That's www.ccphp.net/SENS/podcast. This show is brought to you by Castle Connolly Private Health Partners. We are a concierge medicine organization that partners with exceptional physicians to deliver an unrivaled healthcare experience while also empowering our members to achieve their optimal well-being. Be sure to listen in next time to the Sense of Wellness podcast, and remember, simple daily habits matter most.